It was September 1st. The summer season had all but come to a close in southeastern Albania. July and August had been busy, but as all the crowds drifted home, the lakeside emptied. Beach chairs and umbrellas were being put into storage where they would gather dust until the 2024 summer season. Restaurants were vacant. You could finally drive through the streets without the bumper-to-bumper traffic. For many people, the end of summer marks the return to school. For some, a return to work. After a long, relaxing holiday by the lake, they moved on to the hustle and bustle of their normal day-to-day lives. For me, however, September 1st brought something different. I've house sat for people before, but never in this country. Maybe it's a foreign concept to people here, but it didn't really matter because it was exciting. Friends of mine bought this house recently and have been working on remodeling it, but things were moving slowly and they had to go away for a bit before it was finished. Normally, leaving the house empty and locked wouldn't be an issue, but there was another reason that I was here. So this is the main reason I'll be staying in this house in the middle of a village for a while. Dunes and sunny. There's a reason I don't own a dog, a few of them actually. The last dog I fostered couldn't ride in the car without puking everywhere. But more importantly, my current lifestyle isn't conducive for a canine companion. They really don't need me around to play with them. They play by themselves. That being said, the time with these two had promise. They were old enough to take care of themselves and play with one another, but they were still young enough that I could work with them on some training. Something so simple, but the progression was going to be very visible. Sit. Good. Sit. Sit. It was encouraging for me to work on something and hopefully see results relatively quickly, because the other things I was planning during this time wouldn't be that way. While I'm here, I'm looking at it as a growing opportunity. There are a number of things that I wanted to work on in my life, and being away from the main part of the city has given me space and quiet to focus on those things. For me, having a physical representation of a mental change is immensely helpful. It's how I can continually remind myself of promises that I've made to myself. It's why I cut my hair. It's why I get tattoos, but that's a story for another time. Through there you can see right outside. I think in order for me to stay in this room comfortably, which is the room that I've made my office, so to speak, I need to figure out a way to patch this hole. Up until a few months ago, I had hair down to my shoulders. Even a bit past them, actually. It was the first proper haircut I'd had in about 7 years since I shaved my head to dress up as Steve Jobs for a costume party, and no, there's no photographic evidence, but I did win the costume contest. Just ask my friend Colin. One of the reasons for the cut was just to try something different for a bit, but a far bigger reason was to make a shift in my mindset. You see, about 6 months ago I turned 31, and I saw the scale tick over the 100 kilo mark. It's not the first time I've weighed 220 pounds, but it is the first time in almost the last 10 years. I had been lifting weights pretty consistently for a couple of years though, and if you compared my body composition 10 years ago to what it was on my 31st birthday, I think you'd be able to tell that the pounds sit differently. I realized, however, I was the least mobile I've ever been, getting winded after playing volleyball for a couple of hours, not being able to run up and down a basketball court without needing a breather, taking a break every 15 minutes on a hike. So I cut my hair as a reminder to myself that I wanted to focus on getting in real shape and practicing healthier eating habits. I was committed to losing the unnecessary 10 kilos and would not only track my calories but track my progression in the gym. I would really dedicate time and effort to better my health so I could be proud of the way my body looks. And I haven't quite gotten the hang of cooking chicken on this grill yet, but I'm working on it. Despite it just being short term, this move to a different physical location marks something similar for me. Watching YouTube or films is a pastime that I've greatly enjoyed over the years, but The house didn't have a TV, and I purposely didn't bring mine with me. I wanted to force myself to focus on the other goals I had set for myself. I've lived in Albania for over 5 years. Dhe ende nuk di të flas shqip. On some level, it's embarrassing. Living in a place for this many years and not being able to speak the language. It's not really for lack of trying either. I took a few lessons a number of years ago, but the lessons were difficult when I didn't even know much vocabulary. Not to mention barely knowing English grammar, making the explanations of the Albanian grammar all the more difficult.
Hey.
Luckily, I do work in an international organization in which everyone knows some English, most of whom are fluent. So that means many work meetings, interactions, or just day-to-day office stuff are conducted in English, especially if I'm present. As you can imagine, this has made it quite difficult. But despite that, I've been able to pick up a decent amount throughout the years. While mostly pertaining to shopping, ordering food, and traveling, I have been able to get around the country just fine with only a handful of serious miscommunications.
Good job. Good. All right. Good night, puppies. I will see you in the morning. Unless it storms too much, and then I'll be back out later.
So I'm using this time to dive deeper into that. Hours that I used to spend falling down a rabbit hole of YouTube, I will use to study this language that I really do want to learn. It will take time, but that's what I have. I've been told that it's one of the hardest languages to learn. But what's that saying? Nothing worth doing comes easy. I don't think that's the direct quote, but you get the picture. Speaking of things not being easy, there was one more thing I wanted to focus on while in the house. Learning how to play the guitar. At least a couple songs. When I was younger, one of my brothers and I took guitar lessons. They never really took from me. Maybe it was the teacher, or maybe it was me being an unmotivated and irritating teenager. And this is the far more likely explanation, but nevertheless it didn't work out. My brother is still able to play, probably partly from our lessons, but he has definitely put more time into it in the decades since those afternoons on Asbury Street. But I'm a different person than I was back then, and thank goodness for that. Now I want to be able to call myself a creative and actually mean it, which to me means that I want to be able to create in many different aspects in life, not just in the visual media realm, but ideally in music. Maybe eventually, when it fits into my life, I will be able to create physical things. But I feel like that's far in the future, and hopefully if you stick with me along this journey, I'll get there. But for now, music. I remember enough from my lessons that I know a few strum patterns and chords. Knowing the names of the chords is a different story though. This is going to be a long and arduous process for me, but that's the point I think. I need to set goals in my life, short-term and long-term, because without something to work toward, things start feeling meaningless. And as I mentioned before, nothing worth doing comes easy, right? But this house sit will last for a decent amount of time, and while I may not become a master at anything while I'm here, it's a good place to start. Thanks for sticking with me today. I'll be back soon.